Hello, in this video we are setting up the SpaLod project. It is an exemplary open source project that brings together various developers with different skill level and background. This collaboration has resulted in a structure that is more intricate than what was usually seen in other projects. So first, let's explore the architecture of SpaLod. The first component is the database, that is in this case GraphDB. It's a very common database that have the particularity to come with their own web interface. That is very useful to manage it outside the project, but it's a little bit tricky to use inside the project. So it's more complicated. Then we have the backend that is managed with Spring and only Spring, and we have the frontend that is managed with Vue. So Vue.js will communicate with Spring and Spring will communicate with the database. That's how the project is structured in the global view. Let's now dive into the installation. First of all, we will clone the repository. So we just git clone and the repository that you can find in GitHub. Right, now it's done. We'll go in SpaLod. And here you have all the files. So don't be afraid, we see Django, and it's typically one part of this project when it's composed of different developers that try something in Django, but it's really Spring that is used, not Django. So let's start. We will set up the GraphDB. The first thing we have to do to set up GraphDB is to download it. So you can go directly on the website of GraphDB to download it, or you can use this command with curl. Don't be afraid, you can get this command directly in the README. And here it will download GraphDB in a zip file. Now that we have our GraphDB downloaded, we can just unzip it. Right. Now, if you take a look, you should have your GraphDB unzip. So here, it's the GraphDB that we want. So now that we have to do is to launch the GraphDB. So for this, we go to GraphDB. Then we go to the bin, and here we launch GraphDB. So at the end, you should have something like this that say that it's launched on some ports. For me is 7200. So now that I know the port, I can go to localhost and ask for the right port, and you see you have GraphDB. So in GraphDB, as you see, we have a message that we have no repository yet, so we have to create one. So let's create our first repository. So we choose GraphDB, and since we work for SpaLod, let's create a repository SpaLod. And that's the only thing we need to do. The other is just some tuning, and you can have some descriptions, other thing, but we can just create it. Let's refresh. Yes, now we just need to have a refresh, and we have our SpaLod repository. So we can now go to explore. We can explore our graph. So here we have the default graph. Of course, we have nothing, we just create it. We have also the class hierarchy, class relationships, and visualization of the graph if you want to explore more the database. Let's go back to the installation. So the first thing you need for continue the installations is to have Maven. So be sure to have the last version of Maven. So in my case, I don't have it, so I will install it. So I really like to install things with brew, so homebrew, very useful. So I will install Maven with it. So let's wait the installation. So now Maven is installed. So I just check the version. So 3.9. Okay, perfect. Just another thing, you have, of course, to have Java install, because we are working on Spring. So you can install OpenGTK. And now what we have to do is to install some Maven repository, but are directly inside the project. So first we install pSemantics. It's used to manage some semantic parameter like reading, writing, creating RDF data, and how to manage ontology, so mainly structure and things like this. Yes, of course, you have to change the file where they are located. In my case, it's not in home SpaLod. It should be only on libs. Okay, same thing for the POM. Good, real success. This was the first libraries. The second libraries is ptools. It's a library to manage a lot of tools in Java, so it's used for many things in the SpaLod project. So let's install it. Now every libraries are installed, so it's time to launch our backend server. For this, if you see, we have the source here. We have the source. So we will have to compile it. So let's say mvn package. Since this project was built with different developers, we are not sure that all the tests was actual. So I just recommend to skip the test. So after this long sequence of installations, you should have a build. So to see it, you should have now a folder that's called target, and you have SpaLod inside. That's the one we will execute. So for this, we just have to run java dir target and then SpaLod, and we choose the .jar and not with the original. And now Spring is launched. That means our backend is launched. So now Spring will run our backend. So of course, Spring is working on Tomcat, and that's a server behind the technology. But for us, it's completely managed with Spring, so we don't have to take care of Tomcat. So now we can take a look in our local host. Yes, here we are in TTS. So it's scripted, so it's HTTPS to use. So of course we have no certificate, so we just have to say, okay, we accept to take the risk, and here you just have an information that the authentication is required. It's because you are on the backend that still have some view to the front end to have an access. It was because this project was built on top of another project called GeoTime, but it's another story. Just have to know that Spring is working, so your backend is working, and now we will install and set up our frontend. So if you remember, the frontend is not in Spring, it is in Vue.js. So I will create a new onglet. And let's now dive into our source, main. And here you see we have Java, Python, resource, and Vue, and we go on Vue. JS, here we have SpaLod, so we go also on SpaLod. And now we have all the project for the Vue. So you have to install Node.js. So from my side, I think it's already installed. We'll try. And then when you have installed Node.js, you can use npm install to install the frontend. All right, it's working for me. So now that the frontend is installed, I can run it. So I will just say it's Dave and yeah, host. So I run, and now it's running on my localhost. So let's open it. Same thing. And done. Now we are in the web interface. And that's all for the installations of the SpaLod platform. I will create another video to make some demonstrations to see how we can use SpaLod.